Welcome to Dualingual. Today's topic is the Japanese environmental issue, Fukushima nuclear situation. Welcome to this show. My name is Kaz, and today we are having a discussion with Mr. Augustine, Jonathan, and Mr. Ueda. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
じゃあまずですね、今日の目的は、ディスカッションですけれども、ジョナサンさん、自己紹介の方お願いします。
日本語でやるの？英語で。
English, please.
Okay, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan Augustine, and I think this is an interesting experiment that we're doing tonight. I'm a historian. I've lived in Japan for, I guess, about 3 decades, which is a long time. And I live in Kyoto, and I teach at the university, and my specialty is ancient history. How about you, Mr. Ueda? What do you do?
I'm a very boring person, so I'm nothing, but I happen to be a medical doctor, so now I'm in the middle of night duties working in the Fujisawa hospital, which is juxtaposing Kesenuma cities. And I'm a director of one nursery home in Kesenuma City, but still working at 5 or 6 clinics and hospitals in the areas nearby. And I just happen to be in the middle of the night duty.
And myself, my name is Kaz. I am, I can say I'm a sociologist. My work is evaluation of educational programs. I work for a consulting company in Washington, D.C. area. I have a PhD actually in sociology from the University of Chicago. Okay, so that's that. Today's topic is environmental issues. Jonathan-san, could you...
Yes. Sure. I'm particularly interested in this topic because in Japan these days there's not much talk about environmental issues actually. And when I teach my university students about history or whatever topic, I ask them about radiation or whatever the issues are that are on the news. And not many people seem very concerned, it seems. How about you, Mr. Ueda, where you live? I imagine there's much more awareness of radioactive problems related to the earthquake and the Fukushima disaster. How is it like there? Are people hyper aware of it, or how does it seem?
Well, the people here, including me, are in the middle of the activity reconstruction of this area. So, I think intentionally, consciously, I try not to think about things about the radiations and stuff like that. And there is lots of controversy going on in the medical world too. And you have the influence of the radiations, and some people say that you don't have to think about it, but whatever it is, I think I'm in the middle of the actions, so that's all I think about it. And
So it's kind of in the back of your mind. It's always there, but it's in the back of your mind. That's what you're saying. Yes. There are 2 ways. There are 2 ways, and I personally I don't mind. I don't care about the medical influence of the radiations to my bodies and the people who are around me. And but if there's some influence just medically, and I don't care. So nobody's want to work here in this place, and who's going to do that? And things. I am a Japanese. Somebody has to do it.
I'm a Japanese, and somebody has to take care of the issues. And I'm very honored. I am honored that I'm here, being involved in the work of the reconstruction. That's what I'm trying to do right now.
How about children? Do you see a lot of children nearby where you live? Are there a lot of children?
Of course, they're even in Fukushima.
Yes. How is it
dead town? But things.
Yes, go ahead. We're listening.
I think he's gone offline.
Oh, he's gone.
Yeah,
I see. Well, anyway, probably living in the States is a little bit. I don't know how you perceive these things living in the States, but certainly in Japan right now, the government seems to be shifting its emphasis towards Olympics, towards a lot of not apolitical issues, and are sort of moving away from serious issues related to the water that's polluted in the Pacific, the fish that are absorbing the radiation. We're eating these fish. For people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe it doesn't matter because radiation is probably not what's going to get them. But for young people, it's far more serious if you have to live a lot longer and if it's going to affect your health. This is an issue that everybody has to think about. And it's kind of like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki issue. It's not immediately apparent. And some people don't seem to suffer that much. Other people, it appears 50 years later. Other people, it never appears. Other people, it appears 2 generations later. Some people, even the 3rd generation, claim that they're suffering from radiation-related illnesses, but the government says you can't prove that. If you have some illness such as breathing, respiratory problems, or if you're having other issues, they say, well, that's just your genetic problem. So I think there's a lot of it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly direct causes, with radiation, but certainly it's out there. And every day the water is running out and soaking through into the ground, into the ocean. So it is happening. It's just that the government and the media seems to be steering away from this issue. So it's something that we need to think about, especially since right now the government's focusing on militarism and sort of Article 9 of the Constitution, which is not really is somewhat related to this Fukushima issue, but not directly related. So there's a lot of issues going on here.
It's interesting. I can jump in. You
go ahead.
That students would be more involved. I mean, in your case, teaching at the university level.
Yes.
Is it just a general lack of interest in big issues, societal issues, because maybe they are more concerned about immediate issues such as getting a job? And also nowadays people are more maybe more interested in things about their immediate surroundings because they are connected to each other through Facebook and Twitter and all these social media. Maybe that kind of a new mode of connecting is somehow making them less interested in bigger or big problems. Is there any sense of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. What do you think, Mr. Ueda? Are you listening?
I'm listening. I'm listening. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is, wherever you go, what I'm thinking is that for example, they have the accidents, or you see the pictures on the internet or the newspapers, the coverings, the pictures of a congenitally deformed babies or congenitally deformed animals, and you see that enhances your fear, which is not necessarily based on the scientific evidence. So the things that are going on is just enhancing the fear, which is not actually according to the reality. So the reality is that we're facing is that we have taken care of the people who's living in this area, still not recovered from the devastations of the earthquake. So I just can't afford to think about all the minutiae facts and data of the science.
I have a question. So the immediate practical question here is whether to continue or discontinue with nuclear power generation. Is that right? And
that's right.
Is Japan leaning towards one or the other?
Yeah, that's very interesting because I don't know if you heard this, but just about 2 weeks ago, a judge, not the Supreme Court, but one of the judges, basically said that it's too dangerous to restart one of the big nuclear power plants in Oi. I think that's in Fukui prefecture, which is on the Japan Sea. And that ruling was a big political issue because it's the first time that a high-up judge is saying that we don't know if this is safe enough. We're not sure if we want to start this. And immediately the next day, there was tons of criticism from the LDP, from various businesses, saying that you can't say just because there's a possibility of a nuclear disaster that you should stop all the nuclear power plants. So there's a huge kind of a tension right now between sort of the courts and the politicians who are in power, I think. And it's very interesting to in terms of citizen groups, in terms of students. This is just my own personal impression. I think the majority of the people, at least, are wary, or they're quite cynical, and they're quite suspicious about nuclear power in general. But the politicians, on the other hand, would like to keep it going for at least another 2 or 3 decades until they find another solution, I think. That's my sense. I'm not sure what, that's just how I sense it, yeah.
Just to add a little bit of something here, I actually do have a friend who works closely with the nuclear issue. He's in the operation side. And I was having lunch with him, and he was implying that how actually safe and clean nuclear technology or nuclear power generation is even today when compared to other forms of, electric generation technique. Because the thing that is like a layer surrounding the globe, what do you call that substance that's floating around? That's
I forgot.
Protecting ozone. So
ozone layer.
This nuclear. 原子力発電って英語なんて言うんですか?
Nuclear power plant.
Nuclear power plant. The way it generates energy.
I think the ozone
protects the ozone layer the best.
I think the deterioration of the ozone layer has nothing to do with the nuclear power plants. It's another. It has something to do with
issue.
it. It's another issue.
CO2. Yeah, that's CO2.
So I think the argument is supporting the main continuations of the nuclear power plant is that it contributes to the preservation of the ozone layers. So it's a two different issues. It's connected, but those who are supporting the nuclear power plant is that the nuclear power plant can contribute for the sake of the preservation of the ozone layers. I do not know scientifically it is appropriate or not.
Yeah, I think basically the judge in this with regards to the Fukui nuclear power plant, the judge basically ruled against it, saying that in terms of future possibility of earthquakes, Japan is likely to experience a giant earthquake, but not just in the Kansai area, Fukui area, but Kanto area too. And it's already overdue. Like, Japan has a history of about a cycle of 150 years. There's this enormous earthquake that hits the Kanto area, and it's usually very like 7.0 or even higher. There was nothing to measure the size of the earthquake back then, but
it could happen.
It could
happen anywhere. It could happen anywhere in Japan.
Yes. So, and also 1/10 of the earthquakes in all the world happen in Japan, basically Taiwan and Japan, this sort of plate. And so Japan is situated, it seems the argument against nuclear power is that Japan is in such a hot, dangerous spot for earthquakes. And these things are basically along the ocean, so that anytime you have a tsunami or something like that, you're facing extreme likelihood of some disaster. Another problem is the residue nuclear fuel. When you have nuclear power, you have to get rid of this residue nuclear fuel. And power plants like Monju, which produces plutonium, which could be used to build nuclear weapons. All kinds of things can be. And another problem is getting rid of this residue fuel, which basically it takes. This is just an estimate, but I think it's something like 100,000 years to get rid of the residue nuclear fuel, which means you're looking at the time of the Neanderthals, or basically not even prehistory, basically. And so you cannot keep producing dangerous fuel like this and expect that it's safe. There's a lot of arguments environmentally. There's a lot of arguments, and it's really a debate that needs to be ongoing. But what I'm interested is why there isn't so much debate as there used to be. It's just kind of like the earthquake and the big earthquake that was in Kobe. Right after the earthquake, there's a lot of issues, a lot of debate. But then after a few years, the Kobe city was spending money on fireworks, or they were spending money, just like now they're trying to have Tokyo Olympics. So there's this sort of shift away from these problems when there's still people who are living away from their home prefecture, and they haven't received adequate funding from the government. And I don't know how many people there are. Mr. Ueda might know more than I do, but it's a serious issue that's kind of left hanging there. And yes.
Can I say?
Right.
Sure.
I mean, Jonathan posed
Yes.
this question of why is it that we don't have enough interest in this issue in Japan? So maybe we can pose some hypothesis on that. Just generally speaking, even without this tsunami incident, I feel
Yes.
like Japanese people have not been so politically active. Just generally speaking. But there was a time in 1960s when people used to be very active and took to the street.
Yes.
And we had a really economically blossoming bubble age in late 1970s, 80s, and I don't know what happened in the 90s. But nowadays, as I said, and let me go back a little bit, and around 1970s and 80s, I think there was a time when people's interests were more about themselves.
The me generation.
Yeah, I agree.
And people were interested in topics such as gender or their personal life.
It's right now.
So
I think you're on the mark.
Interest seems to be shifting, and can we say that we are in a historical stage where people are less interested in big ideas and social issues because technology?
Yes, I agree. So when you compare the decades of 1960s and versus 1980s, and you can say that the things are more political back in 1960s in comparison to 1980s. But right now, at this moment, things, especially after that earthquakes in 2011, things are getting more politically. The people are getting more political, whether it is left wing or right wing. That's what I'm observing. What do you think about it, Jonathan?
Do we still have? I have a question for you guys. So, do we still have a distinction between political right and left in the traditional sense?
It's very relative. In Japan, it's very relative. Yeah, it's
what
not
do you
like
mean by
left wing, right wing. Yeah, because it's not like they have a communist party in Japan. They have a liberal democratic party, which is actually a very, very conservative party, and that's what I would define left-right. But if you look at their ideologies, they actually have a lot in common too. It's not really diametrically opposed.
Really?
Yeah, that's my opinion.
That's really interesting to hear. That's really interesting. I think so. You have, the Communist Party and the LDP have a lot in common. If you say that's really intriguing. It's really interesting.
Because the French, for example, if you look at the French, or if you look at like Brazil, where you have the left, the Marxist sort of left-wing Labor Party, and then you look at the conservatives, they're really, fighting each other violently. It's actually not just a discussion. It's actually quite heated. But in Japan, they're still quite polite to each other. I don't sense super tension.
Yeah, because I'm only living only in Japan. I thought the left wing and the right wing, they hate each other and they're fighting each other, and the controversies are really harsh. But
for example, just recently in Brazil, they had these huge demonstrations against the Olympics. And most of the people who were protesting, a lot of them were left-wing Labor Party people. And they were claiming that why should the government be spending money on stadiums and Olympics when they don't have enough medical care, they don't have enough pension, they don't have enough basic needs, and then they think it's hypocritical, and they were getting very, very rowdy about that. And I can't imagine the same thing to happen in Japan about the Tokyo Olympics. I just can't imagine that, or soccer World Cup. I mean, the Japanese always support big sports events, right? I mean, it's just historically, they never oppose that.
Well, I don't think so. There's lots of controversy going on, even in Japan. For example, when it comes down to the Tokyo Olympics coming here, 2020, and they're left wings, right wings, that people are against it or people are supporting it. So it seems to me they're fighting against each other. But it's nothing, according to Jonathan, it's nothing in comparison to Brazil and the other parts of the world. That's really interesting observations.
Well, when I read the Japanese magazines, Sapio is the furthest right. If you want to get the right, that's like the Ishin Party's newspaper, basically. They're extremely conservative. And then you can look at Days Japan. Days Japan is probably the most liberal magazine out there. So you got the right and the left, and I look at both just as an academic. I look at to see what the opinions are, and it doesn't seem, when I look at it, it's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just out of touch, but I don't sense this violent clash, of opinions or anything.
There's no. Oh, I see. There's no fiscally violent crash here in Japan. Is that what you're saying? So
no huge demonstrations where the police and the demonstrators are hitting each other or beating each other like in the 60s and 70s, like you were talking about. Yeah,
I see.
That's a very interesting observation of how we haven't really seen any
indeed.
on the street. Is that a matter of being kind of like timid about standing up and for yourself?
I have friends who actually form human chains and go on demonstrations against nuclear power, who are against U.S. military base being built in the Tango, northern Kyoto. There's an X-band Raider base that's being built, and they go there, but nobody reports on them. It's like the media just ignores them completely, and on Facebook they talk about it and everything, but I think basically right now the media is controlled by the LDP, so that it's very difficult to get any coverage. I actually think there are activists everywhere in Japan, but I just think they're not getting any media coverage. What do you think? I mean, that's my sense.
So I never, well, as far as I'm concerned, I only look at things that are happening in Japan. So to me, the argument is really harsh. It's getting more and more controversial and really harsh things that's going on. But I never think about I never try to make the comparisons. Just relatively speaking, I think what things are happening in Japan with things are happening in the other parts of the world. So what Jonas is coming up with is a very different and interesting views. So it's true. So there's the physical fightings back in 1960s, but right now there's lots of controversy going on the internet. But still, you never see that the physical fightings or demonstrations that's going on out there in the Japanese society. So maybe true.
Speaking, even in America, we don't really have too many street protests. So in that sense, kind of, U.S. is a little similar to Japan. And even union work, I don't think we have strong unions in the United States except for some specific sectors, such as auto industry or maybe teaching.
Well, I think so. We can come up with a hypothesis where if the issue is reaching. To the extent where it is a matter of life or death to the people, the things are getting really harsh. Like you have the demonstration of the Tiananmen squares in 1989, because it's a matter of life or death to the Chinese people. But right now, I think we are rich enough, and the Chinese people are rich enough, and the Japanese people are, even though we have lots of problems, rich enough, so we don't need to resort to that physically violent means.
But this issue of nuclear stuff, radioactivity, issue going on in your prefecture, in the very prefecture you live in, is issue of life and death, but it kind of is happening very slowly.
Yeah. I think the people outside these areas, when the west part of Japan and the people from outside of Japan, so looking at things in our area is different from the things that we're actually witnessing, so living in this area. So, as I said just earlier, that the people think that as the town, as a ghost town, it's a dead town, when actually things are not. When the people are just working, they have lots of economical and commercial activities going on. So I think I can see the discrepancies between the views that shared by the people who are living outside this area.
I think for people looking at this issue from outside, for us it feels like Japan is such a small country, so it's kind of weird to think of only one small prefecture, Fukushima, and think everything is safe and okay outside it, because it's such a small country. Right?
And when it comes to the political controversies going on here, and lots of many volunteering people, including the medical people, the doctors or nurses coming here, and I think those people are really political conscious, and many people are left wings, and I think in my life, my political positions have been shifted from right to left. At this moment, I'm relatively conservative. To be honest, but I never have that the controversy or arguments with those people who are politically conscious, especially the left-wing people. So what we are doing here is just getting along with each other and to tackle the issues of the reconstruction of this area. So we never talk about that kind of political issues, and it's never be at the issues. So we have to set putting aside that issues, the political matters, and all we have to do is, whether you're left wing or right wing, so get together and cooperate with each other as tackling the matters. So what we are doing right now. So,
well, there's also, if you look at it from an economic perspective, a lot of goods that are coming out of Japan, especially food products, are being banned in other countries. There's a huge list of not just fish, but all kinds of products, vegetables, all different things, especially not even products produced in northern Japan, but even products produced in other places, just because the whole world really distrusts the effect, or are wary of the effect of radioactively polluted products. So that there's this whole image thing, and it's amazing. I looked at the list, and I'm sure it has an effect economically. I'm sure that, it's, I don't think everybody agrees that it's perfectly safe. And it's certainly going to, if something isn't done to the Fukushima power plant, you can't build an ice wall, like Abe is talking about building an ice wall to freeze it. That's not, you can't have an ice wall to freeze things that's not a realistic issue. And the Western critics and people are really criticizing him for the way he's dealing with it. His future plans are it's like a fairyland. It's very idealistic and not realistic. It's like the Chernobyl disaster, they had to have 50 kilometers of concrete to fill in the whole area. And all the people who worked on the concrete, a lot of them got very sick and died of cancer. So it's a really difficult issue. And the truth of the matter is, nobody even knows how much water is flowing into the ocean. Like it's a big question mark. And
I understand, but what I'm thinking right now is that you can never attain the perfect safety in this world, so wherever you live in this world, and the issue of the nuclear weapons experiments, that kind of issue should be being conducted by the China, and it's also the very serious environmental issues. So when you talk about the issues of the environment, and you also have to argue about the affections, the influence of the nuclear weapons.
Nuclear power is a residue of the nuclear weapons. They first created nuclear weapons, and then they said, well, maybe we can use this energy in some other way. And so it wouldn't have been produced if we didn't have nuclear weapons first. I mean, that was the first stage. And so basically, it was kind of letting opening Pandora's box, all these problems that we let out.
And another thing we should look at, and there was the nuclear bomb being actually exerted in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and that may have affected the health of the people out there. Sure. But still, the people are surviving theirs, and they are doing the commercial and economic activities, and they're surviving anyway. And of course, there are some affections just physically, and but I think nobody is saying that. Well, some people say that there are some affections, that the people out in that area are being discriminated. At this moment, the people in the Fukushima are being discriminated against. But I think that the people who go on surviving it and they're living in these countries, and so we have to, when we have to think about when we talk about these issues. So there are two ways, and about possibility of the danger and risk of the nuclear radiations, and at the same time we have to face the reality. We continuously living in this area and have to help the people.
That's right. Mm-hmm. If I can say one thing, which is I was wondering what does it mean to speak about this issue in English, and I think one thing that can come out of this is that I just heard Mr. Ueda saying, people in the region are discriminated against. But from looking at Japan from outside, it's a small country, and then it is possible that some foreign people may discriminate against the whole Japanese nation as a country that produces contaminated food and such. So maybe it's important to look at this issue globally, before making, before discriminating against people living in Japan. Living in Fukushima, right? Because there's this.
The pollution's out there in the water. It's already reached the west coast of the United States. So it's obviously a world problem. So it's not just a Japanese problem anymore. It's a problem of humanity, actually. If you look at it philosophically, it's the entire human race doesn't know what to do with the residue fuel that takes 100,000 years to basically decompose. So
it's now more like, we're discussing how Japanese people should react to it, but now it's going to be an issue of how we as the whole world should react to it. So it's an interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if you know about this, but the Finnish people in Finland, they're building a tunnel underground, several kilometers underground, with and it's going to take 100 years to construct. But they're actually going to put cans of nuclear residue fuel deep into the earth, and then seal it up, and they're going to put a sign, and not just in Finnish or English, but in pictorial signs, because human beings may have different. Nobody can predict how far into the future what language human beings will use. This is a very dangerous place. Do not open. But when you think about humanity, which is curious, they tend to want to go into places that are dangerous, or you know what I'm saying? It's not really a solution. Some people in America, did horrible things. They put them into cans and sunk the fuel in the ocean. You can't believe it. It's unthinkable. In the 1960s, they did this, and so basically, horrible. Can't believe it.
The project which is going on in Finland, as you said, seems to me the procrastination of the issues, the exposure to the nuclear radiations, just procrastinations, and nobody knows and what's going to happen, and
Well, basically that nobody else is doing anything constructive. Everybody else is just saying we don't know what to do with it. Like the Japanese sell the field to the French. They give it to the French, and the French take care. Who can take care of this? You have to shoot it into space or something. You know what I mean? There's no, but even around Earth, there's debris. I don't know if you know about this, but there's space debris. There's all these parts of rockets and space stations that are floating around, these pieces in space. I once saw a photograph of this. This is incredible. There's like about 100,000 bolts and knots floating in space. So imagine shooting up a nuclear fuel into space and hitting some of these bolts. It's just a disaster.
So I think when you deal with this issue, there are two aspects. One is we have to place the theoretical scientific possibilities, and you can't deny the risk of the radiations, and you never can do that. But at the same time, it's the reality. I mean, what do you think about the facts that German administration, Germany,
that's right.
Banned the nuclear radiation, the construction of the nuclear power plants, and they abolish it. But at the same time, actually, what happens in the reality is they're buying electricity from French, which is generated by means of the nuclear power plants.
It doesn't solve the problem. Okay. Yeah.
So you have to deal with the matter of the reality at the same time. So there are two aspects of the issues, and since I'm living in Tohoku right now, what I'm dealing with is the facing the reality. That's what I'm doing right now.
Excuse me, we're running out of time, and I would say we have about 5 minutes left.
日本語でやりますか？ちょっと今日まあ面白かったので、あまり長くなるとあれなので、
じゃあ日本語でまとめるって感じにしましょうかね。
はい。
じゃあ一人ずつ。
やっぱそうね、こういうのをまあ今日の一週に限らずですね、まあ英語の勉強じゃなしに、たまたまそういうようなまあちょっとニュースとかね、まあモデルとさっき僕らで話してたのは白熱教室か、誰やったっけ、サンデル教授の白熱教室みたいなのを、日本語でやってもいいけどもたまたま英語でもやってみようかって、使ってる言語が英語ってなんかそんな風にしたいっていうのが、あって、そうなるとあんまり寄ってきてくれる人は少なくなるかもしれんけど、やっぱりそういうのはやった方がいいんじゃないかとね、そういう意義を持ってやって、まあ面白かったと思いますが、またこういうふうのやってみたいなというふうに思います。
島田さんいかがですか？コメント最後に。
そうですね、いろんな意見がまあ今日も伺えて非常に面白かったと思います。まあ私がまあ気にしてるのは、今はわからないですけど、まあ放射線を浴びた子供たちが20年後、その人たちがまた子供たちをまあ産むと思うんですよね。出産されるときにどうなるのか、その時のデータが私非常に気になるんですよ。大体広島と長崎でも2世とかでもまだね放射線の影響があったので、僕は多分驚くぐらい障害者が増える可能性もあると思ってるんですね。だからそういうことを今の政権はどこまで考えているのか、責任っていうよく言いますけど、日本は一番の責任っていうのはこの問題をねただ解決せずに、このままずっとまた大きな地震起こると思いますし、僕らが生きてる間東南海地震があると思うんで、やはり今のまま未解決のままで放っておくと次の世代がまあ迷惑すると私は思ってるんで、やはりもうちょっと今の政権とか今の政治家って70代60代なんですよね。大体力があるのはまあ40代50代もありますけど、そういう方々は本当に未来のことを考えているのか、本当に未来の日本の子供たちのことを考えて世界のことを考えているのか、それを私は政治家に向けて問いかけたいですし、やはり英語でこのディスカッションすることでもっと国際的な視点とかいろんな意見が自由に述べられる。今の日本っていろんな意味でなんか意見が言えなくなってきてる気がして、そういう意味で英語で話すということは、そういう人たち政治家一番非国際的な人間なんです。一番英語は喋れないんですよ、政治家は。だから彼らは要するにもう財閥とか昔の財閥みたいに権力を代々受け継いだ世襲議員なんですよね。 からその人たちは本当に国際的な視野って本当に視野持ってないんですよ。だからその人たちのためにもうちょっとね、勉強して、この議論を英語でやるようにしなさいって私は言いたいですね、逆に。
まあ、今日、
最初は、
今日いきなりやったのでね、なかなかもうぐだぐだにはなったけど、またね、同じようなイシューをもう一回やれば、もうちょっとね、コンストラクティブな、議論になるんじゃないかと思いますよね。
まあ、ぐだぐだになった部分もありますけども、いろんなテーマが出てきて面白かったので、例えば、日本における、右翼と左翼の違いであるとか、まあ、なぜ今日本で意外とこの問題に対して関心が低いのかとかで、まあ、裁判所の話にもなりましたし、それから何でしたっけ、最初は日本だけの話かと思っておりましたが、グローバルな問題であるということが気づけたので、英語でやることに意義がありますよね。フランス人の人に参加してもらってもいいし。
面白かったジョナさんがね、そんな日本だと右翼と左翼がもうすげえ敵対しちゃってて、もうどうしようもないと思ってたけども、ジョナさんがですね、ブラジルとかよそだともうこんなもんじゃないよって、それは非常に結構、衝撃的でしたね。面白かった。それはすごい、なるほどな。
まあ、インドのカースト制とかね、あとブラジルとか貧困、国家だとものすごく両極化してるじゃないですか。だからそれに比べると日本なんかまだみんな仲良くやってる方かなと思いますけどね。
右翼と左翼の定義とかっていうのはその文化によって国によって違うと思うんですけども、入り方もねちょっと違うと思うんですよ。例えばアメリカの場合はまず宗教っていうのもあると思いますよね。保守的にね。
そうですね。
宗教でもそういう保守的な方々はまずリパブリカンパーティーとかね、そういうのがあって、日本でもなんかそんなのがあるんじゃないかなと思うんですけど、歴史の認識の問題とか、ね、太平洋戦争、それまでの道のりに至るその解釈で、そこでまず右左に分かれて、そこからいろいろとこういろんな問題になるというような、まあ、その文化は国によって違うというのは面白いと思いました。
まあ、上田さんが素晴らしいと思うのはやはりその現地でこの活動をされてて、実際これが正しいかどうかの問題よりも、まず処理の問題というか、それの被害者に対するその対応っていう一番大事な仕事をされているので、私たちはただどっか離れて安全なところから意見を言ってるだけですけど、やっぱり現地にいるっていうことはやはりそれだけのリスクも緊張感もあると思いますし、その辺はもう素晴らしいことで、ぜひもっと多くの方が、ね、同じように関心を持っていただけたら嬉しいなと思いますね。
それではこの問題について話を今後もしていきましょう。どうも今日はありがとうございました。
いや、今日はありがとうございます。
面白かったです。ありがとうございます。はい。またよろしくお願いします。はい。
If you want a cookie, people have to subscribe to the channel because you get a cookie per subscriber. Okay? Ask people to subscribe to the channel.